nanohub.org.
Online simulation, and more for nanotechnology.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the recitation session on semiconductor education. Today we'll talk about MOS capacitors. My name is Gerhard Klimeck, and I'd like to start out by showing you briefly the NanoHub homepage. So here we are. We have really four major items that we want to impact, or mottos, if you think of it that way. So we want to enable people to model and simulate, and we have set aside or created actually now about 600 apps and tools, in all 700 tools that really convert research tools into apps and usable entities that we can duplicate research results and can use for learning and teaching. We have isolated the tools that we really believe are well suited for learning and teaching. We have created simulation-powered curricula, so you can embed tools directly into existing curriculum. We have curated educational materials. We have over 170 courses on NanoHub, so we are a MOOC. We want to enable people to develop software and to put their research results into NanoHub, and then ultimately share those and make them available. The easier things to share are teaching materials like homework assignments, etc. So we have the motto of share and publish. So here on the homepage, you also see our US user base in an annual sense. And we highlight here the semiconductor education and workforce development. So if I click on this link here, I will go to a dedicated page to semiconductor workforce development. And I will be focusing on this immersive learning through simulations, where you can let your students be immersed. They can run what-if questions on various devices, and I'll walk you through. We have highlighted here a variety of open courseware tools, ranging from fundamentals of transistors, device fundamentals on the grad level, that's my course, over quantum transport and thermal transport. So a variety of courses, some of which go with free textbooks that you can download for free. Here we sort of have a cross-link to all the other apps that we have in electronics, materials, and listing of our popular apps. We have something called tools, and tools are distinguished from apps in the sense that they require more expertise. An app is really relatively easy to use with point and click, and a tool does require more work. We are hosting commercial software now. We have MATLAB and ThermoCalc, and we're working with Silvaco on having their tools up and running in NanoHub as well. We partner, and we have ongoing faculty engagements. That's what we're doing here today. We have a recitation series on NanoHub for tools and semiconductor education, and the recordings of these sessions are available there. So let me go up here and click on Semiconductor Device Fundamentals. It gets you to our ABACUS page. So ABACUS is really geared towards teaching semiconductors. It's an accumulation of several tools that we have on NanoHub. In a typical course, you might come from crystals, band structure models, bulk semiconductors, p-n junctions, bipolar junction transistors, then MOS capacitors and MOSfets. So today we'll focus on these MOS capacitors. Here you see animations on the overview page. So each of which these items really have their own little homepage, so to speak. So here's this MOS Cap tool, where you can have a variety of exercises as well. And if I click on any of these links here, it gets me to the actual tool. Now, ABACUS, just like all the other apps and tools on NanoHub, are proper publications. They have DOIs. They're now listed in the Web of Science. So there's the authors. Here's a couple of screenshots. There's an abstract, and there's some notes on the various versions, and here's sort of a splash screen that is intended to attract some users to really start teaching with ABACUS from crystals to band structure, PN junctions to MOSFETs ultimately. All right, so here's this tool page. This tool has 17,000 users. So far, there's some citations, there's questions and reviews. Let me launch the tool by clicking launch. You have to get a login. I do have a login. The logins are free. And here is the ABACUS tool as it comes up. I'm going to rescale it a little bit so it fits better on the screen like this. And really, this is the splash screen of ABACUS. So these are really links to different tools that are available on NanoHub. So all of these are individual tools, and all we did really is assemble them into a one-stop shop so you can easily find the content for teaching semiconductors. You can reach these tools here from the drop-down list, or you can click here just on one of those images. So what you see here is now a tool, the MOS Cap tool. There's a couple of, in this tab here, of exercises that you can utilize for teaching. And here's the MOS Cap tool. Let me highlight that, scroll a little bit. So it comes up with a P-type uniformly doped CMOS capacitor. And this tool is run by Padre, which is a simulation engine that that Bell Labs donated to NanoHub. So this tool engine actually did run and design transistors. So it's a real silicon design tool, device design tool. It's a P-type semiconductor device. And let me start out by maybe showing you some slides that where I introduced this material in my class. So here's an MOS capacitor where we have it biased already in accumulation. So here you've applied a negative bias. You pulled up the potential, the Fermi level. Here's the Fermi level in the semiconductor. You can clearly tell it is P-type, and you should be seeing some a significant accumulation of hold charges here. And indeed, you have holes here, and then you have the compensating electrons on the other side. You don't see band bending in the metal because the density of states in the metal at the Fermi C is very high. And so we call this accumulation. So you have the holes accumulating at this oxide interface, and you have basically a capacitor. So you have holes and electrons like this. Now, if I change the gate voltage and I start to pull the metal down, I will have band bending in the semiconductor here. And that means I'm beginning to deplete the holes here. And will have compensating electron holes over here as well. So as I deplete the holes, I have the acceptor donors being exposed, and I have a charge here on the capacitor side. And if I increase the voltage further, I'm driving the system not only to exposing more acceptors, and the depletion region gets larger, but I will also invert this region here and have electrons being available. And then, of course, there is an issue on how do you get those charges into the system. So here, those are majority carriers. They can react rather fast and be exposed and repelled rather fast, but they come from the body contact. But if you really want to get electrons up into the inversion layer, that is a slower process. So we have really two different charge distributions. We should see two different effects in the device. And I make the point here. So somewhere I thought I had put together also the capacitors. Let me look for that real quick. So we have the, now we can go back into the tool. And if I hit simulate, this is clearly a result that many people would have run because it's the default. So we actually store those simulations rather than them being recomputed all the time. So here is the ratio of the capacitance of the structure versus the pure oxide capacitance. You can also just plot the pure CV characteristics. So here is the oxide capacitance. Here are here's the high frequency response. So here you're in the accumulation, and you're beginning to deplete the charge, and the capacitance will go down as you are distributing the charge in the depletion region. And if you're beginning to slowly enough accumulate electrons, then you basically come back up to the oxide capacitance. So this is what we expect. So here you have really two series capacitors, and the capacitance gets smaller in p-type in this direction. Now you can play with this structure. You can increase, for example, the doping. And what would we expect if we increase the doping? The band bending in the semiconductor should become stronger. The depletion region overall should become smaller, and therefore the reduction in capacitance should become smaller. And we can see that by comparing these two curves. So these are the normalized curves versus the oxide capacitance. The oxide capacitance obviously didn't change. And I can also compare that in the raw capacitance. Again, oxide capacitance didn't change. And here is the lower doping case. Here's the higher doping case. And basically, your depletion region is getting smaller, and therefore therefore the charges get closer to the oxide, and the reduction becomes smaller. You can see some of that if you look at the net charge density at the last applied bias. So let me go here, turn off these plots. So here is the case of the original case where we have the net charge density. Here you have the electron charge. Here's the inversion charge. Here's the depletion region charge. And this is the net charge density. And this must have gotten out of whack in terms of this is strange looking. So let me not, this doesn't look, this looks very strange. I don't understand why the net, I don't understand this. So let me, this does not make sense to me. Well, the depletion region does get smaller and it does go down. I don't know what happens out here in this deep region. This doesn't look quite right. See here, you can see the net charge dropping down precipitously, and maybe it just goes into the numerical noise and kicks up. So sorry for the diversion. So let's look at the net charge density at the applied bias. So these curves make sense. You have accumulation, inversion here, depletion here, and then the net charge density goes down as you expect. Now, one thing you can clearly do is, let me clear and go back to the 1E15 case. Should just pull out the whole result. So one thing you can clearly do is you can make the oxide thinner. If I make it thinner by a factor of 2, that should increase the overall capacitance by a factor of 2. The relative curves should probably not change a whole lot. It's the high frequency depletion capacitance that changes. So if I look at the overall CV curve, so here is the, let me turn off the comparison. So here's the case for a gate insulator oxide thickness of 0.5 micron. Here's the case of 0.1 micron. The curves look roughly the same, but the absolute scale is different by a factor of 2, 6.9, 3.4, 5. So this is exactly a factor of 2, but the overall shape doesn't change a whole lot. What does change is how the depletion region in the on the semiconductor side changes a little bit. The charge gets closer, so you actually go in deeper depletion in this case here. All right, so that makes sense. What you also can do is, let me clear this again. We can look at N-type devices. We can change the environment. Let me flip the voltage too. So now we're going for an N-type. So you flip the CV curve. So you have the accumulation is here on the right, and you're beginning to do the depletion going this way. This is the low frequency branch, so that might be a typical question you ask in an exam or so, and you can let students explore a variety of comparisons for these type of different devices. You can, in this case also, or for electrons or holes, you can also add interface trap charges, or you can add charges into the oxide, which will give you solid shifts. If you add, say, 1E12 charge, you shall see a shift in the CV curve. Should be a solid shift. And right now it's actually running the Padre tool. This is something I hadn't run. So it's executing this ancient old Fortran code. As I said, has designed transistors in the 90s and late 90s, early 2000s. And I guess I shifted it too far. So let me make this less harsh. So I basically had shifted the CV response out of the range of voltages. So I could have changed the voltages, or I can change the oxide charge, or the interface trap charge. So again, it's running the tool, and it should assemble the results. And yeah, so basically, as you see, I can see here is the original. I put in positive interface charge, and then I put a huge positive interface charge. I shifted the CVs all the way over. Let me clear this one out. And if I put an opposite charge on the oxide, I should shift the curve into the other direction. And again, this is running the tool, presume. Yep. Not pulling out a final result or something that was already computed. Yeah, and so here you have negative oxide charge, 0, and positive charge, and you basically impose a solid shift. The CV characteristics, if you don't normalize them against this oxide capacitor, it looks pretty much the same. And if you look at the net charge density, wonder which bias direction it actually shows in. You can't see much difference here. It's all happening at this interface. I want to expand the tool to actually show these charges as a function of voltage. Then you can scan through and get a better feeling for the evolution of charge and the change in the depletion region, etc. That's not in the tool right now. So I think with this, it might be worthwhile inviting questions.
We did get one question that came in. Can we find moment of charges?
Moments of charges. Do you mean by that? Just a spatial distribution of charge, or calculating total charge against the gates? Or I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean by moment.
They said centroid.
Ah, okay. So I see. So if maybe the point is to see how far effectively the charge is away from the interface, the distribution of charge, whether it's a sheet charge or whether it has a moment. So it's kind of buried in the CV simulation. So there's not an output like that that is in this tool, as far as I can tell. It can, in principle, be done if you then integrate the actual charge in the oxide, in the semiconductor. Yes, if you have oxide charge in the oxide as well, and then normalize that against a certain coordinate, and find where the moment is, or the medium, so to speak. But that is not what's built into the tool right now.
Do we have a way to see the distribution of interface traps as a function of voltage?
I believe what this tool does, it has a solid charge right now at the interface. It is not a true DIT integration, I believe. I think that can be turned on in Padre, but I don't speak Padre much. But that could be a good summer project to put a student on to examine that. And we're actually converting these tools into more modern implementations, and that will be a great expansion to be added into this tool. So I don't think we have that in there right now. And actually, at the last session, somebody had asked about that as well, and whenever the last session was in January or December. So that's something to do.
All right, another question came in. If I plot C/COX for gate thickness in nanometer ranges, are there several peaks? Is there real?
So there's several peaks. So let's see if this thing breaks down. So I guess if you put this down into 20 angstroms, clear all, and put this into p-type, put this back to 0. So I think I'm roughly back to normal. Let me make this, this for argument's sake, first pit 50 angstroms. So there could be, I wouldn't be surprised if there's meshing issues resolving the oxide and the potential properly. So we'll see shortly what happens. Certainly this tool doesn't, this is probably what you mean, yeah. Are those the noisy ones here? So this is the low frequency branch, and that comes. I've seen oscillations even regardless of the oxide thickness there. So let's make this really slow. And we should see actually a different noisy pattern. That's really numerical noise where basically the tool is trying to calculate the accumulation inversion carriers, and these inversion carriers have to be generated here in the so if I generate these carriers here, it takes time, and in the simulation tool it does an AC analysis and balances these charges through SRH recombination and generation. And so this is a generation process to get the carriers there, and that can certainly be noisy. So now you see a slightly different noise. So that's just numerical noise. If we make the minority carrier lifetime shorter, my gut feeling is we should be able to create more minority carriers on the other side easier. So if it's short, so here you go. Let me show you the equation. If you look at the SRH equation, if you make these times shorter, then the generation, in this case, because it has a minus sign, is getting larger, and therefore it should stabilize these AC simulations. And indeed, this is what you see, right? So now this curve becomes actually rather smooth. So it has not much to do with the oxide thickness. Maybe it's because the field is so strong in the thin oxide. So then it does make a difference. But basically any noise here on this low frequency branch is really just numerical noise, or physical noise, if you will, right? In a sense, the convergence of these algorithms does have something to do with also the physical convergence. Were those the spikes that you were asking about?
There's a follow-up. Is there a way to see the effect of interface traps, initially defined ones, without SRH effect? Oh, sorry, that was not a follow-up to the other one. That's a separate question.
Yeah, it's a separate question. So without SRH, you won't have this carrier generation here, right? So that corresponds really to the high frequency response. And that being said, then you should look at the effect on this lower branch I get your question right. And then introducing, for example, a interface trap, and like this, you see the effect without SRH, right? Because you can't, it doesn't follow it. So if you look at the high frequency branch, that's all without SRH, effectively. Maybe I didn't answer the question, or maybe I misunderstood the question. So here we should see this shift, but it's not big. Do a bigger shift. Yeah, so here you see the shift. So this would be, if I get your question right, this would be the effect of the surface interface trap charge.
All right, we had another question come in. Is simulation based on 1D Poisson continuity equations, numerical analysis, or analytical approximation solutions?
It's completely numerical. There is no analytical approximation here involved other than some of the models. So it's really an engine that meshes the structure, has a variety of mobility and SRH models. You specify different material properties, and it's truly a numerical simulation. Okay. There's no more questions, and we can wrap up the session. So thank you very much.